This week's discussion board has us discussing subpoenas in the vignette that we watched relating to Chapter 7 and the school counselor. And to begin, I definitely don't agree with how the counselor kind of approached the situation when discussing this with their colleague. There's two specific ACA Code of Ethics that I think that are relevant to this situation. And the first is B1C, which is respect for confidentiality. Counselors protect the confidential information of prospective and current clients. Counselors disclose information only with appropriate consent or sound legal or ethical justification. The way that I would probably start and the way that I would do things differently in regards to this actual ethical code is I would encourage the counselor to speak to the lawyers, whether it's the county or the township or the school itself. If information needs to be taken from her in a school counseling setting or any counseling setting, I think that encouraging that individual to speak with a lawyer to see what information they have or what they would suggest. The second part is B2E, which is minimal disclosure. To the extent possible, clients are informed before confidential information is disclosed and are involved in a disclosure decision-making process. When circumstances require the disclosure of confidentiality information, only essential information is revealed. So while I would encourage my colleague to go see the lawyers that are going to be representing her in this situation or getting feedback or suggestions, I would also speak about the idea that it's important that she lets the client know and her and the client work together to decide on what they need to submit for the subpoena and what's important. Not all of the information, particularly if the client feels that he would rather live with his mom than his dad, that information isn't necessary in this case or in this situation. So it's important for the counselor and the client to figure out what is important, things that are going to be necessary or relevant to the actual case, and not personal information that's just again not important for the situation itself. Some other things that I would probably speak to my colleague about outside of just the confidentiality ACA is making sure that, again, she goes back with that client and informs them that certain things will come out, but together they can kind of decide on or figure out what's important. I think that the client's that relationship and rapport is probably the first thing to consider, and continuing the efforts moving forward, they don't feel like you did anything behind their back, and I just think that that's probably the biggest thing. The colleague in the video just was very blunt and very direct, and while yes, some things are going to have to be provided legally, there's still a helping aspect of what we're doing. So I think that they were just very cold with the way that they responded to the actual question. So that's my thoughts on this week's video or this week's discussion board.